Okay, it was this one. Why was Call of Duty World War so awesome? You know why? It was because Treyarch actually gave a shit back in the day. We're gonna wreck to it, man. I can still remember this. I don't know anything, but I can remember it vaguely. I played it when I was like 12 or something like that. The same reaction, man. The same reaction. Like, it hit different back in the day.
My God, that intro gives me shivers every time I see it. Call of Duty World at War was the last game in this enormous franchise to be based in the 1940s.
Nope.
Until that other game came
Yep.
out. I don't remember what it was. I heard it sucked balls.
Don't mention it. Go
World at
on.
War harkens back to a time when the COD series wasn't in assembly line production, made just to print money, when it had soul. It's fondly remembered by fans.
Exactly, that's a good word, soul. This is what all the newer Call of Duties are missing. Like, there are still great games. I still play Modern Warfare. I loved Cold War. I loved the Modern Warfare campaign, but something is missing. That's the soul. I don't know how they did it back in the day, but maybe it's just nostalgia.
Fans for being the last World War II COD game, and for replicating the same things that made Modern Warfare's multiplayer great, and implementing them into the World War II setting. Alongside its gritty, unapologetic depiction of the Second World War, and the addicting Nazi zombies game mode, World at War is arguably the most important game in the series.
Bro, I loved those cutscenes.
Besides COD 4, which I think we can all agree is a masterpiece that changed the FPS genre in more ways than we can count. The reaction to the Infinite Warfare trailer was a plea for good old-fashioned boots-on-the-ground combat to return to the series. And return it did, but it was always perplexing to think how a franchise that was made to honor the veterans of the past and their call to duty could go from this...
On McCullough, 2 rules. Rule 1, you're no good to me dead. Rule 2...
So I read it.
What difference does it make? You'll all probably end up dead anyway.
To this.
I love it, man. Yeah, no, it's just like every generic action movie, man.
From this...
Mercy, you do not deserve mercy! What mercy? You should gladly die! Wait! He may come help us! He can die for us!
I love this. I love this. Okay, not what he did, but this scene truly shows that everyone did a bad shit back in the day. Like...
To this?
I'm Infiltration Recon
What is this, man?
IR-15.
What?
Was it the demands of the publishers? The lack of vision and originality? Did COD become corrupted over time?
Yes,
Whatever the
it did.
reason, COD World War II...
Yeah, I can remember this one. Wait a second.
Did COD become corrupted over time?
Look at our insane fish animations. This is what they said, that it was a new engine and shit like that. They did so much with Call of Duty Ghost Dog and...
Whatever the reason,
such
COD
retarded
World
shit,
War
man.
II was a massive disappointment for me and many other longtime fans. To go back to their roots, to hype it up so much after milking the futuristic warfare style dry, and to fail in the eyes of the hardcore fan base and veterans of the series, was enough reason for me to take a trip back to the last World War II COD game.
Which was
it
actually
really as
good.
good as we remembered? Did we all judge COD World War II through rose-tinted glasses of the past?
I don't know about the multiplayer, but the campaign should be perfect.
Or was there something valuable
It's the
to
best
Call of
one from
Duty's
all of them.
formula? Something worth looking into the past, hidden in World at War? Whatever might be found in this game, it's time we go back to uncover what, if anything, it was. So let's link the mainframe,
Let's go, man.
Take out those fucking PG boats!
and raise the Russian flag straight into this.
That is now best character, man. My
There's a
waifu.
certain misconception that Call of Duty was always a multiplayer first type of series, with the campaign being a shallow, tacked-on necessity used only to market the game and show off. But this wasn't always the case. In fact, it was the opposite.
Bro, the
the
scenes.
franchise, in my
These
eyes,
scenes, man.
began as an homage dedicated to the veterans who sacrificed their lives for the preservation of liberty. At least that's how the end credits put it. but the game also served as a vessel for destructive fun, responsive controls, and fast-paced gameplay. So COD was something that could get you interested in history.
Yeah, to be honest, the campaign on the Japanese front was much more exciting because of those different attacks where you went like Banzai attack and shit like that.
Teach you something about it, while also simply being a fun game. The war quotes when you die, man, that shit was deep.
Yeah. He who has 1,000 friends has not a friend to spare, and he who has one enemy will meet him everywhere.
But my point is, Call of Duty initially was a campaign-driven game,
I love this.
with multiplayer being somewhat of an afterthought. This all changed, of course, but just keep that in mind. Many people wonder why we compare World at War to COD World War II so much. Some think it's unnecessary to look at the past so fervently, but I say it's important to understand where we come from. I say look to the past so you can act in the present to make a better future. Fuck, that's what history class is all about. That's what World War II is all about. So you can expect a little bit of history in this video, and hopefully we can look at what the franchise has done in the past that made it so popular in the first place. Because sometimes we lose track of what got us where we are, and we lose track of ourselves. Anyways, I said World at War has an unapologetic campaign. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it doesn't give a fuck about your feelings. It could care less if you're offended by Nazis, the swastika, by mass killing, or any of that shit. The game says fuck your feelings. You're gay. All it wants to do is portray World War II with no restraints. I'm going to share with you an immensely important and relevant quote, and I want you to remember this shit as we talk about the story and campaign. This comes from Tim O'Brien's book, The Things They Carried, a novel you might have had to read in high school. So here it is. A true war story is never moral. It does not instruct nor encourage virtue, nor suggest models of proper human behavior, nor restrain men from doing the things men have always done. If a story seems moral, do not believe it.
Yes.
If at the end of a war story you feel uplifted, or if you feel that some small bit of rectitude has been salvaged from the larger waste, then you have been made the victim of a very old and terrible lie. There is no rectitude whatsoever. There is no virtue. As a first rule of thumb, therefore, you can tell a true war story by its absolute and uncompromising allegiance to obscenity and evil. This just means when you write, film, or depict a war story, you must have no reservations about what you're telling. If you tell a war story, you need to have the fucking balls to portray it without concerns of morality and virtue and what's right and, oh, how's this gonna affect the children?
Yeah.
Now fuck all that. And this is what World at War does. It doesn't give a fuck. Now, obviously this quote doesn't apply to every war story, fiction or non, and you could argue I'm not using it in the right context, but my point is to use this quote because it highlights what feels more authentic and what feels more Hollywood. The game is very different from the other COD games because the tone is way more serious.
I can remember this scene so well,
Lightheartedness
man.
and comic relief is ditched in favor of driving home a dark, unsettling atmosphere.
And you were in the well.
This is in stark contrast to World War II's positive, upbeat, and safe campaign where America is portrayed as the greatest heroes that ever lived. COD World War II purposely shied away from the controversy that is inherent and integral to the Second World War. It didn't have the balls to portray a horrific war story. It did not have an absolute and uncompromising allegiance to obscenity and evil. To put it simply, this is good old-fashioned Call of Duty, but it's not as archaic as the old World War II games. This is the era of COD where they were in the fucking zone, man. This is when the series was cool. Before it became infested with the MLG tryhard 360 no-scope 7-year-olds that joined in during Modern Warfare.
Yeah, I was one of those kids, man. Sorry.
The early days were what I call the era of humble, inspired beginnings. Then the next era was the badass, confident, is cool because he doesn't even try to be cool, rise to fame and power. And in later years it's become the era of manufactured garbage without a soul.
I played a lot of MW3, honestly.
Anyways, back to the campaign. It starts off with this fantastic cutscene that uses real World War II footage and molds it in with some fancy editing. It shows you the horrors of war, brings you up to speed on where we're at, production levels rising, men gearing up for battle. You almost forget you're playing a game at this point. This is a brilliant way to remind us what was going on at the time, set the stage, and to create a unique visual style for the cinematics throughout each level. And above all else, the intro gets you fucking hyped.
Members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives.
Yes, you are ready.
December 7th, 1941. A date which will live in infamy.
Time to die for your country, mate. Let's go.
Was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
The campaign shifts between two fronts and two perspectives. You play as Private Miller, an American soldier fighting the Japanese in the Pacific Theater, and then you play as Dmitry Petrenko, a Russian soldier fighting the Nazis on the Eastern Front. You begin as a POW, and your fellow Americans are getting tortured, and his throat is slit. Jesus, Mary, that's brutal. So you get a gun and you take out those dirty Japs. Yeah, shoot him in the... Oh, sorry, was that offensive? Well, who gives a shit? It's World War II. Fuck your feelings. So I talked about this before in my COD World War II review, and I want to switch gears and discuss the gameplay in the single player. World at War has the annoying invisible walls just like every other COD game.
Yeah,
but here's the big difference. What separates good level design from bad level design, no matter how linear, is player freedom. It was only occasionally that I bumped into a barrier I thought I could go through, and there were moments of frustration here and there, but I never felt like I was restricted in how I moved around. And that's a big lesson modern FPS games need to learn. You can have set paths and linearity, but keep your invisible walls and barriers to an absolute minimum. Give me multiple ways to move around. Create levels that feel expansive, open, and free. And I think World at War does a good, but not perfect, job of that. One thing that stood out to me, because it's been almost 7 years since I played this campaign, is the lack of QuickTime events. I had totally forgotten what it's like to have complete control in a COD game,
all the time.
aside from a few scripted moments. World at War doesn't waste your time or slow down the game with this dumb shit. But what really blew me away...
Like, don't they know that already, that people hate those quick-time events? Why do they still implement that
shit? It was
shit?
the unique scenarios and encounters throughout the levels. For example, when you fight the Japanese, it'd have gotten real boring if you just ran through every mission shooting the guys behind cover. But they use the location, battle tactics, of the time to create interesting gameplay. The Japanese don't just shoot at you from behind cover, they bonsai charge your ass.
Yeah. This was so insane, man. Bro, I was shocked with this one, man. I was shocked.
Kamikaze their planes, play dead, set traps, and ambush. They use guerrilla tactics that make them unique and surprise the player at every turn. They got ghillie suits to hide in the grass and jump out and surprise you. They snipe you from atop the trees, pop up from hidden holes in the ground. It's just awesome.
Ones, man.
In a series where gameplay can be monotonous, straightforward, and often flat out boring, these twists and turns along the way spice things up. Anytime a mission feels like it's about to get dull, it ends. So they're all just the right length. On the flip side, as a Russian, when fighting against the Germans, it's pretty by-the-books gameplay.
Yeah, this was like
but they put more emphasis on story, the characters, and the motivations of the Red Army. So essentially, we've got two halves of the campaign. One that focuses on more unique gameplay, and the other that illuminates the horrors of war aspects, which makes for a nice mixture. It's like rum and coke. COD games usually have some type of tank, turret, and flying missions, etc. But now here's another example. You got this level where you're flying around shooting at planes, those fucking PT boats, and whatnot. At first glance, it seems pretty simple and on rails.
Yeah, you could climb
but
around
again,
that
they
shit.
use this opportunity to create interesting gameplay. You're not just sitting on a turret for 20 minutes, you move back and forth through the ship.
You also saved like some
so you're
crew
looking
members.
at different things. You start off in the air, but then are forced to land on the
But you
water.
crashed there.
Alongside this, now you've got to shoot planes out of the
rescue
sky
survivor.
and rescue other soldiers trying to swim to safety.
So
So instead of
remember,
being a boring on-rails turret section, Treyarch added elements that differentiate this type of gameplay from its most basic iteration. There's more going on than just the shooty-shooty. A final example, they take this scenario of sniping one guy and turn it into an experience that teaches you to be patient and wait for the right moment, a lesson you'll need for the rest of this mission. They use the setting of being a survivor amongst slaughtered Russians and
This is one of the
Stalingrad
best scenes,
and use
man,
it to
ever.
teach you about stealth and sniping. You even get an opportunity to assassinate a high-profile German officer.
Got you a slow-mo for it? Was it a slow-mo? Yes. Yeah, that's enough. Hey,
Now that's
how
a
do you
sniping
remember
mission
this shit?
done right. This is Call of Duty World at War's gameplay in a nutshell.
How?
It's exactly what you'd expect from a COD game, with all the cliche types of levels, but at the same time, it totally surprises you. Whether it's with the story or the unique mechanics / gimmicks, World at War is just a blast to play through. And with all the COD games out there, with how many years it's been, that's saying a lot. Oh yeah, and the shooting feels great too. Something about these old weapons and being harder to hit your targets than normal, it just feels right.
Yeah.
It's like, it's World War II, and the guns are kinda shitty, but it's a good kind of shitty. It's a rugged shitty.
It's gritty,
Rugged
yeah.
shitty. Never thought I'd say those two words together. But anyways, quick note, I really don't like seeing hit markers in single-player campaigns. Reason being,
Happy
I want to
feet.
be immersed in whatever it is I'm doing. Now, if I see a little marker in the middle of the screen that tells me I killed somebody, that takes me out of the game. Without hit markers, you become a much more thorough player. You play more carefully because you never know when an enemy might still be alive in a last stand or if you didn't blast enough holes in him to finish him off. And hit markers take that exciting feeling, the tension, the immersion, and the fear away from the game in a small but noticeable way. The soundtrack of the single player is really good. And let me tell you, I don't often remember or listen to Call of Duty soundtracks outside of the game, but this one stuck with me. You got real somber, unnerving songs that slow things down and give you the chills.
This was insane, man. This was insane.
Ooh, the chills. Ooh, I get the chills, boy. Then you got badass guitar riffs that gives it a bombastic feeling when you're running around shooting people.
Bro, you're ready, man. You're ready.
The music enhances the campaign and gameplay in all the right ways. The difficulty is pretty good and mostly fair, but people have asked me for tips on how to beat it on Veteran. The trick is, don't play it on Veteran. Nade spam for days, boy! Anyways, back to the story. On the American side, things
never
are
played
pretty
this on
simple.
Veteran.
The characters and dialogue could have been written better, more unique. You don't really feel
Think
too
normal
attached to
entitled.
Roebuck or that other guy. But I look at it and I see the American side as more of a vessel for immersion in the Pacific theater and for gameplay reasons. So it's passable. The Russian side of things, goddamn,
Yes.
is it brutal.
Still
The
is
game really
10 times
dives
better.
into the Russian perspective, how they view the war and the Germans. And Viktor Reznov is just a beast. This side is all about pushing into the heart of the Reich. For Mother Russia. You're just some soldier who's been left to die in the middle of Stalingrad, but you cheat death and link up with Reznov.
Dmitry Petrenko! I saw this man cheat death, time after time at the siege of Stalingrad. As long as he lives, the heart of this army cannot be broken. He makes us all proud.
The overarching plot and story is simplistic, gets the job done, but more importantly, it serves as a way for players to imagine and experience war themselves, and think about the decisions soldiers had to make back then. Keeping in line with that Tim O'Brien quote, World at War doesn't romanticize these huge conflicts. The game is not so much worried about whether you're rooting for the Americans or not. Its only goal is to depict these battles in the most grounded yet brutal way possible. It has balls. When you awake amongst piles of dead and you see Germans shooting the survivors, you're like, well shit, that's fucked. When you're creeping through the jungle and one of your fellow soldiers gets hung in the air and explodes, wow, well that's fucked
Bro,
up.
he just got
And these
blew up,
moments
man.
are scattered all throughout the campaign.
Instant.
From the Russian perspective, you start off with the goal of just surviving. But over the course of time, Reznov and the other Russians get more and more bloodthirsty, merciless, there's infighting. Some soldiers wonder if it's really worth it to be as merciless as the Germans, and Reznov thinks it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, different perspectives, man.
Dmitri,
I love this.
finish those rats. Once again, you cheat death. Our tanks are ready to smash this line and... Chernov! I am not hearing gunshots.
There is no point, Sergeant. They are already bleeding to death.
Then maybe our friend will help them bleed faster.
Like, your decision.
You as a player understand you gotta end the Nazi regime, but that doesn't excuse what the Russians are doing to achieve that. Killing men who surrender in cold blood, lighting them on fire, it's just messed up, man.
It's insane.
The observant player will notice these moments are shown more and more often the farther you get into the heart of Germany, and they're not always in your face. My advice is take your time and look around. You might see something interesting. So the story carries a certain weight, a feeling of how war changes people. Reznov is proof of that.
Which do you think will lead us home? Writing about this war or fighting it? No one will ever read this. If you lack the stomach to kill for your country, at least show me that you are willing to die for it. Dmitri,
Someone should lead us.
A few years ago, I took several fiction writing classes, and one thing
It
we
was
learned
already
is that
10 times
violence,
better storytelling
gore,
than
sex, drugs,
every
all
other
that
quote, man.
taboo, controversial material must serve a purpose to the story. If it's just there for gratuitous sake, then it adds nothing. World at War doesn't fall into the hole of violence for the sake of violence. When you shoot some dude's legs off and watch him writhe in pain, it gives you the shivers. That's war, it's messed up. The level of gore, blood, and violence is perfectly in line with World at War's dark atmosphere and really enhances the experience. It unsettles the player. The finale is epic as hell. You, just a private in the Red Army, one amongst millions, rises above death, destruction, and carnage, and you are the one who carries the Russian flag atop the Reichstag. Being able to play through and experience what is depicted in this famous photograph is such a chilling experience that leaves an imprint on you. That is something you will never forget doing in a video game. And at the end of it all, after the dark, depressing, and depraved experience you've just been through, World at War reminds you what this was all about. See, COD World War II made the mistake of showing this message at the beginning, when it's far more powerful at the end. And as you see the credits roll, you reflect on what you've just been through, the fun you've had, and the atrocities you've seen.
Big true, big true.
You put down the controller, you're glad it's finished.
What now, Eggman? What happened? Zombies. The zombie mode. Didn't play it, so let's see how it was. I only played Black Ops Zombies and MW3 Survival. I will never forget that life, man. We will never.
Bro, the first
forget
time I
this.
saw this and was transported to some abandoned house, I basically shit my pants. And I don't feel any less manly saying that. I shit my pants. Revealing an entire new mode after beating the campaign, just wow.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Brilliant. And it's Nazi zombies, just bravo, bravo. But how does the mode hold up after all this time? Well, pretty dang well. To be honest, Nacht der Untoten is pretty dated compared to the other zombie maps, but when this came out, man, everyone wanted to see how far they could get. And it wasn't just for the high score, it was because
This is
it
a
was
Gmod
fun.
map.
World at War Zombies was the
No
top.
way. I play like Gary's mod, Zombie Survival, and this one is a Gmod map I played on.
To the town, and the map was a great entry point for what would become a staple of many COD games down the line. Honestly, the vast majority of my time spent on World at War was in zombies. I got to like level 20 in multiplayer, but if zombies tracked my progress, I'd have been like 5th prestige or something. And here's another point. I basically only played Der Ries and Nacht der Untoten. The fact that I could spend so much time playing just 2 maps, with a single game mode with only one objective, goes to show how addicting and fun it is, no matter when or who you play with. Repairing barricades, getting power-ups, evading the zombies, hitting the mystery box as zombies closing all around you.
Man.
It's
This never changes.
heart-pumping defense
That's so
mode
great.
at its finest. Now, I thought about getting the other 2 DLCs to play the other zombie maps, but god damn it, Activision is still charging $10 for that.
What?
Dude, that's what I paid for them like 8 years ago. Just make them free, come on. And one thing to mention is Zombies was so freaking cool, due in large part to its characters, who were funny, well written, and just plain old silly. It's my intense love for these old zombie modes and maps that makes COD World War II's take on it so disgusting in my mouth, because the newest game rips away that option of repairing barricades, fortifying your position, and holding out to the end. It forces you to run around and do stupid shit, but that's never what made Zombies good. What makes it fun is the simplistic pleasures. When you know you can use a self-revive or call in a nuke because you paid real money for loot boxes, it takes away every drop of intensity this mode has to offer.
What did they do, man?
Zombies didn't try to scare you by offering jump scares at every fucking turn. It was scary because you were holding out. You didn't know when you were gonna kick the bucket. Nazi Zombies at its core is just about surviving as long as you can, in any way you can. And all that excessive, useless shit, all those extra mechanics and 77 quests like it's goddamn Skyrim, it's unnecessary. It doesn't need to be so structured and linear. It's funny to think about how much Nazi Zombies has influenced the franchise since World at War. Hell, it's got a whole treasure trove of lore and stories to tell with it. It was like an experimental mode that could have just been a one-off gimmick if people didn't like it, but it blossomed into a core part of the Call of Duty experience. On the multiplayer side of things, I confess, I really didn't play much back in the day, which I 100% regret not doing because the player populations are so low you can basically only find team deathmatch games. But I was able to host some custom game nights and play all sorts of modes on all of the maps. Now, COD games have always had that one thing that is super overpowered and people hate it. That one
MP7, man.
thing is the MP40 and bouncing betties. But aside from that, the game is pretty balanced and fun. Shotguns and snipers are a bit harder to use correctly. Hit detection seems a bit off, but maybe that's the lack of strong aim assist. Class customization is fantastic. You've got so many options it doesn't feel overwhelming, but there's enough here to really mix and match, and experiment with a bunch of different builds. Where World at War really shines is in its maps. You've got a pretty much perfect variety in terms of design, size, layout, and visual
I can still remember this one. I played this one.
aesthetic. Dome is one of my favorites because it's basically Nuketown before Nuketown. Then you got Cliffside, which is just a perfect map for long-range encounters. We played all sorts of crazy, stupid game types like free-for-all shotguns only, snipers only with no zooming. It was such a blast because the game is simplistic at its core. There's no unnecessarily complicated customization, ridiculous kill streaks, or absurd mechanics. It's just good, simple Call of Duty greatness. I talked about map design a lot in my World War II review, and I'd like to elaborate on that. See, I gave that game a lot of flack for having only 3-lane maps. And truth be told, most FPS maps are 3 lanes, or a variation of that. But here's what you gotta remember. The most important thing newer Call of Duty games need to understand. There is a difference between having a 3-lane map and a map that forces you down those 3 lanes.
Yes.
What do I mean by that? Well, sure, World at War has plenty of maps where the action goes down 3 paths or lanes. However, you have so many options to move around, vertically, side to side, underneath. So many directions to take that you don't feel confined to 3 lanes. Now here's an example. The map Macon Bacon. Sure, it's got 3 general paths to go down, although you have this area below the docks, and you can run down that instead. Then we've got Dome. Very small map, yet gives the player plenty of options. It has elevation, bit of low ground, and no matter where you are, you can always cut through the middle. And it's a tough thing to explain and show it to you, but it's something you feel, and that's what's important. I felt like I had freedom no matter what map it was on, no matter how big or small. World at War takes all the best elements from COD 4 and adds them here to not only build off of COD 4's formula, but put a unique spin on the World War II era of gameplay. One last thing to mention about those 3 eras of COD games I talked about, the franchise was at its best. It had the most positive reception in this era, and I think I know the reason why. Because Call of Duty was providing both new and old to fans of the series. You had Modern Warfare, a more modern take on Call of Duty, and you had World at War, then Modern Warfare 2, then there was Black Ops set during the Vietnam War. You see the pattern here? At this point in COD's life, even though they were creating a new game every year, there was something for everyone. If you
Yeah.
didn't enjoy the more modern games, well, you had World at War for that old school charm, and Black Ops 1 as a nice in-between, a fresh take on the Vietnam War. But if you had gotten tired of the World
Why
War II
does he say
setting,
Vietnam War all
you
the
had
time?
Modern
Just Cold War.
Warfare 1 and 2, which told unique stories and used weaponry from a more current and relatable time. And I think this style of new, old is why the COD community was getting more and more upset with every new game, because they were getting burned out on the modern futuristic era. World at War's multiplayer is fantastic on its own terms, and it also holds this secret to Call of Duty's constant success year after year in the palm of its hand. Pacing is the lesson here, variety, and understanding that COD fans want to experience what the series has to offer in at least 2 different time periods.
Yeah.
All in all, Call of Duty World at War
What
is
can
one
you say?
of the best
Can you
COD
say
games
yes?
out there.
Yeah.
It's truly fun in all modes of play, which is not something that can be said for the rest of the series. The campaign and story holds no reservations and has the balls to depict World War II in the most brutally honest way it can. While the overall story and characters aside from Reznov could have been written better and in a way that makes us care, I can see that wasn't
Imagine if they would do that like today. If the next code would be as grotesque as this one. It would be
Treyarch's
insane.
goal with this game. It's not so much character driven. They wanted you to think about this war. They wanted to show you what it was like. Nazi zombies spawned from this game. So much lore, fun, and creativity that has blessed the COD series for many years. Having the last truly good World War II multiplayer in the series, and the way it took the best elements of COD 4 and replicated them, turned it into a multiplayer that pretty much every fan could enjoy. And that is why Call of Duty World at War was so awesome. But what did you think? When was the last time you played World at War's campaign? Do you plan on going through it soon? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Now let's see what some of my patrons thought of Call of Duty World at War. Android Elite says, "My mom loves COD campaigns, but specifically had a lot of fun with World at War. Some memorable moments include
What?
the baffled look on her face when she first fired a bolt-action rifle and realized she had to pull the bolt back for each shot, screaming, 'Trees!' when a group of camouflaged Japanese soldiers sprung up and attacked, complaining about always being given the most dangerous tasks while everyone else hangs back, and generally just loving Reznov, partially because she played Black Ops first and enjoyed seeing his origin." Danger Wasp says, "COD World at War is an amazing, refreshing take in the World War II genre by Activision after their last World War II game, COD 3. World at War is
Yeah.
able to use the Modern Warfare ID Tech engine beautifully and tell a gritty and graphic story with memorable characters way before COD took the more over-the-top roller coaster ride seen
Exactly,
in the
man,
later Modern
exactly.
Warfare games and even in COD World War II. Such fun even carried over to the multiplayer with the various classes and World War II take on the COD 4 killstreak system. Finally, let's not forget the classic mode where it all started, Nazi zombies, pure carnage and fun in its simplest forms before it evolved into the more complex and story-driven mode that grew in Black Ops and beyond." Grizzly Gamer says, "I think really World at War was the first game in the series that encapsulated the series as a varied multiplayer shooter. Between the multiplayer and fantastic zombies mode, with an equally brilliant campaign, it just gave you the most bang for your buck at the time, and still in my estimation, stands up well today." Helljumper says, "Call of Duty World at War has been my favorite COD game ever since I first played it, and a lot of people just see it as a lazy clone of COD 4, but I strongly believe World at War has
No
the
way. No way it was just a lazy clone of COD War.
better weaponry, kill streaks,
delusional, man.
game modes, map design, and Nazi zombies was basically the cherry on top of an already delicious cake. Not to mention it actually managed to have one of the best campaigns in the entire series, if not the best." J-Freak says, "World at War is one of the few post-modern warfare CODs that respectfully handled the tone of war. There was no cartoonishly evil villain,
Yeah.
just soldiers in a war."
Exactly, man.
And the RZI guy says, "After the success of COD 4, World at War took a huge risk with going back to World War II, but it paid off. Treyarch took what COD 4 did right and applied it to World at War, with its kill streaks and custom classes, but also introduced Nazi zombies, which has now become synonymous with Call of Duty and a staple of the series. Along with that, it gave us a well-told story, respectful to World War II, and wasn't afraid to show the Nazi symbol, unlike most games nowadays.
Yeah.
So thanks to all my patrons who gave their thoughts. If you'd like to have that opportunity, feel free to support me on Patreon. That's all I got for today. This is the Act Man signing out. Peace!
Peace, man. Go subscribe to Eggman, man. Like, he does the greatest content. He does the best reviews. I watch each and every single video he will make. Yeah, that was actually it. Subscribe to him. Subscribe to me as well if you find this shit interesting. I do more original stuff on modern YouTube stuff and shit like that. And yeah, just leave a like and subscribe and see you next time. Wafer out.